Well, it's that time again, people. Idiots versus idiots. Big man, did you know that today I was walking around in the store, and I heard somebody, they were watching a foreign language program on their phone, full volume, just waiting for the pharmacy to call their name.
Full volume. Okay.
Yep. And I didn't reach over and drop a shelf on them, an entire shelving unit.
So you restrained yourself, is what you're saying. All right.
And all I want is for somebody to pat me on the back for not destroying this person's life.
Probably an old person that can hear. But so yes, I'm giving you your pat on the back for not destroying someone, for violating your
social
audio space.
It's people have no shame. We're in public. Don't do that. I don't care what language it is in. Don't do that.
Oh, so it's not the foreign language. You're not being again. You're
hold on. I speak 3 languages, so
I don't care. I'm just saying.
And it was in Vietnamese, so not someone that I naturally like. I don't have a blood feud with them. So let's get rolling. This first story, for my boomer co-host, Big Man.
This is a business and marketplace news show, by the way.
That's correct.
All right.
For the first time ever, Big Man got it correct without me having to fix it.
It only took me like 12, 13 episodes. So
yeah, right. This first story is so much fun because I got to educate this ancient dinosaur. Him and his brothers, when they were younger in Dallas, they got a car shipped to them in the Sears catalog. And they screwed
it was a barn,
together.
By the way. Not a car. It was a barn. But yes.
Yeah, whatever. So he's old enough that, he's a boomer in spirit. So this website called Mischief, man, I know that you took a look. You looked into a little bit.
Yeah.
It's Mschf.xyz. I remember when I was on the phone with Big Man, because he still dials people and calls like this.
Yes. I actually pick up the phone, and that's called a rotary phone, by the way.
Yes.
But yes, I still pick up the phone and call people, and you had to literally spell this out like 4 times because I thought I was getting it wrong, because I typed in the stupid web address, and it's a DOS-based web.
It's not even a web page. The UI looks like it's DOS.
Right.
Yeah, you're right.
You know what I mean? It looks like a DOS. So I thought I was getting it wrong. I thought I was getting to a bad web page because it didn't look like a web page. Yeah, and Danny's like, no, that's it. That's it.
You got there.
You got there.
This company is what I would call a memetic. That's an incorrect usage of that term. But they produce and manufacture viral products such as the rubber chicken bong. I forget what the original name was. And
Puff the squeaky chicken.
Puff the squeaky chicken.
Yes.
They also made a pair of Nikes. It says "Walk on Water" or something like Jesus or something.
Well, they called it Jesus shoes because the
water.
The water inside the shoes was holy water, right?
No, it's from the Jordan River.
$3,000 a piece, by the way, and they only do, of each one of these dumb things, they only make 1,000 units.
So it's really smart about what they do is. It takes that kind of supreme model of hyper exclusivity, and it applies it to an array of products.
Well, look, and this, I read a couple of articles. This guy recently sat down with Business Insider, and the reason he was able to do that is, here's a person that doesn't use a standard website, that's created some exclusivity, and we've talked about exclusivity on the show and how important that is. We've also talked about building an audience, and that's the 2 things that this person has done right off the bat. They've created exclusivity, and they've created an audience, because these aren't normal things you can't go out and get. They are curating, creating, right, and then sending out these products. You can't get them anywhere else. They are creating products from scratch. One of my favorite of which was their last one, which was a toaster shaped bath bomb.
Nice.
So a toaster that you throw in the bath.
Right.
Because that's funny, right? Like here's a toaster you throw in your bath.
And so connecting to one of our other stories and the general sensibility in the marketplace, is that goofs, jokes, memes, this is a business. Your dad told you you can't make money from memes. Ha ha. In your face, Dad.
Well,
I'm
and that's
making
the
money from
truth.
memes now.
And here's what I do appreciate about at least the two guys running this ship. This is only a 10-person operation, by the way.
Beautiful.
But this 10-person operation is what I was about to get to a while ago. The reason they got a meeting with Business Insider and the articles that are being written about them is because you say, if you go, hey, this is a 10-person operation, they're
Sorry,
developing
what was
a
that
thousand...
word? They got articles,
Shut your
articles
face.
written about them.
Written about them. The reason we are talking about a 10-person operation that only sells
Right.
1,000 products at a time is because this 10-person operation that's only selling 1,000 products at a time got an $8 million round of funding to create.
Who funded them?
It was an angel investor, an
It doesn't
anonymous
say who?
angel investor. No.
There-
A lot of
there doesn't
angel
even-
investors do anonymous. Well, anonymous
Space
when it
usually
comes
has
to
them.
they go through a company,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Does that make sense? So $8
Yeah.
million. They just finished an $8 million round of funding. That's why their Business Insider went and talked to these people. It's like, wait a minute, whoa, 10 people in the company. You're creating Jesus shoes, and you
Right.
just raised $8 million, right? Like
No,
that's
they do-
worthy.
Yeah, but they do a drop every 2 weeks. So yeah, they're selling a limited quantity of something, but every 2 weeks. And listen, what CoffeeZilla, a fellow YouTuber, some of his content's fascinating, some of it's whatever. He's one of these anti-scam people, but I'm like, isn't everything kind of a scam
Well,
kind
okay.
of person?
Scam. Look,
That's not the
again. These people have built an audience that are willing to
Right.
buy the 1,000 units every 2 weeks. That's all
Okay.
that matters. That's it.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what the product
So-
is. These people are selling out in
Exactly.
hours, not days. Go ahead. Go ahead.
You won't just interrupt me while I'm trying to I'm talking about a fellow a YouTuber.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. So a lot of his content is anti-scam or whatever, and that's fine. But he just brought this up, and he did a little more research than I was gonna ever do. And he
Mischief?
figured out, yes, about Mischief.
Okay.
And here's what he figured out. There is another company, a subsidiary or sister company to Mischief called Circo Global. Now, yes, it is entirely true. Mischief only sells a certain volume, a certain of a vintage that they create. They create a product. There's a limited number of them. So they are staying true to. It's not like Dodge. They said we're only going to make this certain number of Dodge Demons, and they go, holy crap, we sold all of them in a month. Okay, now we're only going to make a bunch of Dodge
That's right.
Super Stocks.
That's right. Sure.
Right? It has 1 horsepower less than the Demon, but it comes with all the same stuff, different wheels, super stuff.
Yeah.
Whatever. I know someone's going to comment that I got something wrong about that, but the point is I don't care because screw them. I'm a better person than they are.
Well,
live a
the
better
point
life.
is they changed something small to make sure that
So
they
it's not-
created not a liable issue.
Yep.
And then,
Yeah.
but I get what you're going.
So CoffeeZilla goes and figures out that a company called Circo Global. So they're looking at so they have all of this data now of what is selling well, what isn't selling well, so on and so forth. Circo Global is turning around, and the popular products like the fried chicken bong are being sold by Circo Global without any sort of whatever. And these are actually, Mischief is the company that partnered with David Dobrik to give away the puzzles. David Dobrik had, I think it was called the David Dobrik puzzle or something. I forget the exact whatever, but there was a $10,000 giveaway. You put together this puzzle of a QR code. You scan the QR code. You figure out how much money you win, if any. And I think the top winner, the top one was 10,000 or something like that. And it was actually Mischief that partnered, or Circle Global rather. I don't know who. One of these two partnered with David Dobrik to do it, which is why, when I started learning about what Mischief was, I was like, hey, that puzzle looks familiar.
Well, look, again, and you're right about, okay, I didn't know these two companies were, if you don't
Connected.
look into it and you go, okay, these two companies are connected, you would make the same mistake that you and I did originally with, okay, is this company trying to scam off of that company and just making
Are they
more
trying
of
to knock
that
it
and
off,
knock it
right?
off and
Because
whatever. And oh, by the way, to me that's not necessarily a scam. There's not a whole lot of new shoe technology out there that is, you know what I mean? Like there are different shoe designs and stuff like that, but they're all knocking off of knocking off of knocking off, right? It's kind of the world that we live in. If you can tweak a product and make it a little better or a little, you know what I mean? A little
right.
worse and cheaper, people will buy it. Fidget spinners, when they first came out a couple of years ago, if you know what fidget spinners are, the little
Of
things
course.
my boys wanted them, had to have them, and in the beginning they were expensive. They were $20 a piece or something like that, and then everybody started knocking them off, and they're everywhere, right? For $1 a piece
Yes.
or whatever, right?
So
So
I was incorrect. It's $100,000 puzzle by David Dobrik, and it is
okay,
from Circo.global.
circle dot. So again, and the fact that this company, hey, that's brilliant to me. They
Yes.
created what looks like a knockoff, and they're still making money. Good for them, right? What I do, I keep going back to this Business Insider article because there are certain people that you come across that to me are quote worthy, right?
Right.
Like that they ask a question. I don't know
Right.
whether these two owners of this company are just telling a story because sometimes people are actors, right? Or
Right.
they actually are these people, because they sound like the right people to be running this kind of operation, because they say things that are just kind of weird. Like, we're trying to do stuff that the world can't even define, right? Or
Okay.
we're not here in the marketplace. We're not here to make the world a better place. We're making light of how much everything sucks.
Okay. I mean, listen, I agree with that sentiment on some level because I despise
Mm-hmm.
when companies and this has to do with this is a kind of a political thing, but they start talking about their social impact. We're going to change lives. And if you watched
He's
Silicon
talking about
Valley,
me, folks. He's talking
uh,
about me.
basically, if you watched Silicon Valley, the TV show on HBO, they meme this. They make fun of this, like we're changing lives. You're making a chat room, okay, and it's getting bought by a company for a couple hundred, like $28 billion. Okay, nobody wants your dumb chat room is not saving lives. But the point is, if your dumb chat room is making money, that means it's paying employees, and those employees are in turn buying groceries, buying homes, getting married, having children, because there is a company that's making a profit. So it all comes back to a very Ayn Randian point of profits are good. And
Yes.
this whole having a social cause attached to your business makes me feel gross inside. I just want commerce to be direct. Everything isn't so bad. Everything is absolutely fantastic. We just have to stop having this silly, inane,
Stop it.
useless
Stop it.
dialogue about saving
Cynic.
the
You
planet.
are a cynic. You are sitting
I'm
here on a
not.
show called
I am
Idiots
optimistic.
versus Idiots, trying to share your knowledge and share your sentiment with other people. You
Yeah.
are currently benefiting from helping other people. Currently. You are currently benefiting.
I'm not doing it to help other people. That is
Whatever.
a side effect. That is a
No.
side effect. That is a happy side effect of me
Of you
trying to
making
do
money. Of you making
Yes,
money. No.
that's
See,
correct.
that's
Whatever.
bullshit. It's bullshit.
Yeah.
Let's get back to this story, because this is the point, right?
This is the story. We are the story.
We are the story. Whatever. Here's my favorite quote from the article. If we can make people a fan of the brand and not the product, we can
Right.
do whatever the fuck we want.
Yeah. He literally just said what everybody at Supreme is thinking but will never say because it will damage their reputation. And there is a quality to that transparency of going, yeah, we can just do whatever we want. And we know that because we made you a fan of the brand. And to me, to somebody like me, that level of transparency makes me like them even more.
I understand that, but two things. One, you are in the minority of that sentiment, by the way.
Are you calling me a minority?
No, said you were in the minority of that sentiment. And two,
I will have you know that
this
Indian people are the
over
world's largest population.
over and over, it's been shown in business over and
Right.
over again that this sentiment of we'll do whatever the hell we want as long as we're making money is only as it only works as long as you're on top, as long as you're making money. This is in the NFL, in sports all the time. If you're a great player, you can get away with highway murder, right? If you're not a great player, you don't get away with the
Right.
same things.
Totally.
So in this way, they can have this attitude as Mischief right now. They're selling 1,000 products, you know what I mean, varying in prices from hundreds of dollars to thousands of dollars. They're making a crap ton of money. Investors are happy. Everybody's happy. And you can have that attitude as long as you're turning that kind of profit.
Yeah, and let me put it to you this way. I think these guys, because they have Circle Global as a secondary business that takes their highest profiting and best selling products, they turn them into a longer term play. What I think though is smart is they can go create another company that competes with Mischief and say Mischief sucks, blah blah blah, but they're also controlling that one.
Absolutely.
So,
Well,
a
and that's the
controlled
beauty of
opposition
business,
play.
right? And again, leverage all the different business, but I think this kind of company, Mischief, in this way with this kind of personality,
Right.
only lasts. There's a shelf life to it. You can
Yes.
only be the bad guy for so long. You can only be that personality. As much as I agree with you from you respect their transparency, it only lasts so long.
Yeah, so I agree with you're correct. It's only going to last so long. And as an entrepreneur, as a business guy, my thought process is always, dude, if you can go scoop up 10 million bucks and put it in your pocket on some fly by night, not scheme, not scam, legitimate business that only lasts 2 or 3 years or something, and it's just boop, right? It's Beanie Babies. You made some money and now it's over.
Well,
Go find something else.
That's why my point is these kind of upfront, blatantly in your face have a shelf life. I can't turn around and go make, let's say I make a toaster and that $1, and I sell it for $1. I can't make a tagline that says this is a shitty toaster because it's $1. Now you and I may think, hey, I respect the guy for calling this toaster he's making and selling for $1. I respect that he says it's a shitty toaster, but it works. It's $1. What do you want? Right? But it's not going to last long. Not many people are going to buy it. Somebody's going to make a toaster for $1 and say it's a quality toaster, right? That's the toaster that lasts.
But then charge $5 for it.
Exactly. But people are trained to go ahead and buy that $5 toaster forever.
Yeah.
Versus this, it has a shelf life.
Yeah, and so, but I'm saying, and this is, we want to tie it back to some lesson because apparently we have to help our audience grow or something.
Yes, Danny. Yes, go ahead.
There is nothing wrong with saying, I'm going to go start a business. I know it's going to have a 2 or 3 year shelf life, but I'm going to extract 5, 10, $15 million in the process. And then I'm going to go become a real estate investor. I'm going to become
You don't even have to do that. That's the thing, beautiful thing about today's world is these people could ride this wave as long as it's working for them. And the minute that they see that they can't sell 1,000 of these in a couple of hours,
sell the company.
Pivot, sell it, or even pivot and say, oh, well, we're changing our model, guys. We're now going to be happy-go-lucky, and we're going to sell more normal products. And how many websites have started out with some kind of niche? We've talked about them several times on the show. That started out with something, Jet.com, we talked about last week. Very small, and then, boom, they do everything. Right?
They're Walmart.com now,
Exactly. So you know what? I appreciate the uniqueness of what these people they're doing. I hope it works out for them as long as it does, and I hope they make a crap ton of money.
So do I.
But it's finite. It's short-term gig.
Yeah, and here's the thing. We don't know that for a fact, but here's what we do know. Even if it is finite, ain't nothing wrong with that. That's fine too.
This is idiots versus idiots. What do I know? Okay, I'm guessing.
Literally nothing.
All right? I'm guessing here. All right?
That cowboy hat keeps the intelligence from coming into your brain. But this next story is something very interesting is people in the content business. We've watched, people like Glenn Greenwald, okay? Matt Taibbi of Rolling Stone.
Yeah. Which
who
was
hosts
actually the first time I've actually heard this company be mentioned was by Matt Taibbi. I mean, I literally had no idea what this was until he goes, "Hey, check out my Substack."
And Glenn Greenwald started The Intercept because he didn't like how he was being treated at other publications. And during the last run of the last election, Glenn Greenwald is super lefty, and that's fine. I actually enjoy Glenn Greenwald. He left The Intercept because they wouldn't let him publish what the editors, his own publication editors that kind of technically work for him, they wouldn't let him publish things that were perceived as being anti-Biden. Okay,
Right.
which the guy was half asleep for a campaign. But I digress. He started a Substack, and a lot of these people who went over there, like, I'm making more money.
So,
a bunch of people.
So let's back up a second. What we're talking about, folks, is a company called Substack, right?
Right.
That's what this is about. It essentially is the easiest way to describe Substack is it's a easy to use platform that is essentially newsletter based. Right? It's not a new concept. Newsletters have been around since the beginning of the internet, right? And even before that. I had an assistant manager that worked for me back in the day in retail that actually ended up quitting his job as assistant manager. He had a hobby in trains, like old school train sets and stuff like that. It was his deal. He liked it, whatever. He started literally a stamp mail, like he printed every week a newsletter about trains. And he ended up having so many people subscribe to it that he could quit his job. All he had to do was play around with trains and write this newsletter every week. And I was, hey, you go do it, man. You make your money.
Yeah,
but that's
absolutely.
That's the power of newsletters. And all Substack has basically done, put themselves in direct competition with like MailChimp, Medium, Patreon, some of these others, and said, hey, let's give you an easy format to upload your content, an easy format for people to subscribe and pay you for that subscription, and we're just going to take 10% off the top.
Yeah, and I would say it's a newsletter meets a blog, kind of, but with a front end. Something we've talked about a lot about on this podcast is how consumers are trained. So consumers are trained to consume I call them the newspaper websites. They are they're trained to consume those without paying because of ads. But they are consumed. They are prepared to pay for newsletters. So I think that this is a brilliant.
People are prepared to pay for the content they want, right? Because that's the problem with anything from any major news network, any major anything. It all gets aggregated to this average, right? And people will pay for content that they want or really want to hear, right? Whether it's true or not. But they want her to, and this is what they call kind of influencer style journalism. If I like a particular influencer, I'm going to like the content they're putting out, and I'd be willing to pay, which is Patreon for YouTube and everything else. Right. It's just a more of an indirect way, where this is a more direct way, right? Is I'm going to give you $2 a week, $3, whatever their subscription cost is, and you're going to give me the direct information because I like you. Look, this sounds like to me, Oprah would have been big on this back in the day, right? Sure. Like if Oprah had, Oprah's book club and stuff like that, right? Yeah. If Oprah had a Substack back in the day, it would have just made her billions on top of the billions she already had, right?
Here's all it does, and there's nothing new under the sun. We've said this a couple times on the show. It gives the newsletter a shiny new tech feel that makes it not so arduous and like silly that I have a newsletter. And what I think is interesting is what we're seeing across the media in general is creators, authors, writers, what have you, being squeezed out of being able to say what they want to say because you advertise or whatever, you know?
Absolutely.
And listen, the genesis of Idiots versus Idiots was a political show, which I later was like, no, we can't do a political show because we'll never turn this into any money. It's just going to be a hobby because YouTube, and listen, our one video about the former president of this country, nothing political whatsoever we said about him. We
Right.
didn't say we liked him or disliked him.
Mm-mm.
We had a neutral dialogue about whatever. And
What
I
the
can't
next
even say
step
his
may
name.
be. Yeah.
Is considered unmonetizable by YouTube or limited
Because of the subject
monetization.
matter. Right. Even
But
though
wait,
it's not.
and
Yeah.
so and so here's what happened is similarly, Patreon did the exact same thing, which they said,
Mm-hmm.
hey, we're gonna let the consumer decide, and the consumer can go right to you. You can go have a direct relationship with your followers, your users, whatever, customers, however you want to, whatever term you want to use. What happened with Patreon, and this is a curiosity in my brain, okay, is will, you know, Substack, because all of these writers are now going to Substack.
Mm-hmm.
Will we see a similar push in the future to say, oh my gosh, this one person has a bajillion Substack subscribers, they're making money. MasterCard should not allow this.
Well,
Substack should now not allow these people on our platform.
look, if
Blah blah
there's
blah blah blah.
anybody out there that can find a way to not pay somebody, they're going to do it, right? Like
Of
that's
course.
that's the way it works. But here, look, I don't think that Substack is something new, but I think there's a place for it. Now, will it again?
It's a new approach to an old idea. I think
Right,
that's a fair,
but
yeah.
I also longevity of it. So one of the things I was curious as I was reading up on this story, I found it was described by a lot of people that have used Substack and then maybe moved on, and some that are still on, that it's more like a stepping stone, right?
Okay.
So like you said, the intercept or whatever, that it's a great way, and the way they mocked it up was it was a great starter for media networks. If your idea is to create a media network of some kind, this platform was great for you as a starting point, as a stepping stone of creating an audience, getting them to pay you
Right.
for your information, but then you quickly outgrow, right?
Well-
to go from this one type of content to the next step, that it's a stepping stone.
In the case of Matt Taibbi and Glenn Greenwald, it's the opposite, right? Because they went from huge publications to their own Substack. And in the case of Glenn Greenwald started The Intercept and then left The Intercept.
Right.
So it's a little.
Well, no. I mean that for them individually. I'm saying that if Matt Taibbi turns around and at some point creates his own channel, his own media channel, and that's what I'm talking about, then he would outgrow Substack, is my point. It's a great way to go out on your own, get people to pay you directly instead of relying on whatever company you're working for.
Right.
In his case is what, Rolling Stone and a couple of other people, right?
And he still has a podcast at Rolling Stone called, I think it's Brilliant Idiots or something else.
Useful Idiots or Brilliant Useful Idiots? Him correct. And what's the lady's name? They do it together.
Crystal Ball.
No, Crystal Ball's on The Rising.
Well, maybe he had her on as a guest.
It doesn't matter. It's called Useful Idiots. You can Google it. It's, you know what I mean. It's actually a really decent show.
I've never watched it. I just know Crystal Ball because I have a picture of me and Crystal Ball somewhere.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've met Crystal Ball.
I do watch The Rising. I'm a riser.
I don't.
I do like. The
Rising is stupid.
I see. It is not. Shut your face.
Anybody who likes The Rising is stupid.
Moron, you're stupid. You're an idiot. Look, I do like when I'm looking at stories like this, I always want to see, I don't want to always just read what Substack has to say. I don't always want to read just what the people that are using it have to say. I also try to find out the things that people that used it in the past or have success using it. I came across several people. Heather Cox Richardson apparently did a U.S. political history subscription newsletter. The lady's banking more than $1 million in annual revenue.
Good for her.
U.S. political history. Now, I can't think of anything more mind-numbing or wanting to pull my teeth out than reading weekly articles about U.S. political history.
You just explained it to me, and my brain cells all at the same time just jumped off of a ridge in my brain. And they all
$1
died.
million in annual revenue, Danny.
Good for her.
$1 million bucks?
That's a lot of money.
Could I have pitched to you a U.S. political history show and you in any world thought, oh, that's $1 million idea?
Yeah. No, there's no such thing.
There would not been in my realm of thought right? You know what I mean? It look, and all of this culminates to all of this comes down to. I wanted to tell you this because I didn't know, because in my research, again, I pick on Danny because he, you know, chooses these articles and then chooses not to read anything about them.
That's untrue.
But
That is
I
false.
figured Danny may not have heard because it just we're recording this on Friday, just on Tuesday of this week.
So we're recording this on Friday, the 29th of
9th.
January.
And on Tuesday of this week,
Yeah.
Substack apparently is afraid because Twitter has bought out a company called Review, which is in the same business as Substack.
Ooh.
Twitter is moving into the Substack, the newsletter business.
Twitter is moving into everything. Twitter has a Clubhouse competitor too. So I appreciate that Twitter is now going full Facebook and saying, middle finger to the sky, we're going to invest into everything. I didn't know this piece of information. For the first time in Idiots versus Idiots history, Big Man had a piece of information that I didn't have.
It happens every week, and they know because they watch.
No, this is the first time.
But yes,
so and it'll never happen again. And I literally intentionally withhold information because Big Man always says he has more information than I do, and I literally withhold things that I find in my research so I can best him on a show that we do as partners.
That's it, right? Competition is a good thing. But yeah. I thought this was really cool because look, and this is kind of goes back to what we were talking about and we've talked about before. You have these big companies, Twitter, Facebook, Google, whatever. One of the things that they've gotten really good at is watching. And look, these are all companies that aggregate data, right? That's really what their business is aggregating data. So they go out there and they're on the forefront to go, well, holy crap, Substack is making a mint and doing this business. Let me go find a company that I can purchase. And oh, by the way, this Review is some small mom and pop, like foreign company that just basically has the infrastructure, right, and a startup kind of thing. But they can go acquire this and immediately get into this business in a fraction of the time that it took Substack to get up and running, right? And then they had the billions of dollars to market it to everybody like it's a brand new thing, like it's the next big thing, right? And Substack may even have a better product.
They might,
but they cannot compete with
they don't have
Twitter's ad campaigns.
They don't have. They can't. Like they also can't compete with Twitter's money. They can't compete with Twitter's. Twitter has a legion.
And in this kind of case, the first to market.
Let me finish my sentence, Big Man.
No.
Twitter has a legion of programmers that can that once this product is purchased by Twitter, that can bulk it up. They can build a better version of it. So what were you going to say? It's probably something idiotic and inane.
I don't even remember now. Who cares?
It was that important.
It boils down to money, right? They have money that they can shove at it. Money into programmers, money into marketing, money into getting it out there. They have a cult following, again, audience, right? They have a massive audience that they can advertise this to for free, right? Like, again, all of this comes back to first, that's what I was going to say, first to market, as much as we harp on that first to market is important. In this case, being second, third, fourth to market, if you have the ad budget behind it, if you already have an audience, it can make it much easier.
Yeah, so I actually don't, and I disagree. I think I disagree with the Big Man on this one. I actually don't see first to market as an advantage. I see first to market as a disadvantage because the first guy through the wall gets bloody. The second guy already has a door cut out for him. So I think if you look at it, if we view and look at social media as an example, who was really the Friendster? Who remembers? No one's using Friendster. Who's using MySpace? Nobody's using any of those platforms, right? Mm-hmm. The third or fourth guy through the door, Facebook, ends up having the staying power because they learned what did MySpace do wrong. And listen, we all have to give a huge apology to Tom from MySpace. Bro, you were so cool. You didn't spy on us for the government, right? You let us have music on our profiles. We're so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just happy that you sold your company to Fox News, and then you took a bunch of money and went and started Tom's Shoes, and you gave shoes to poor African children that didn't have shoes or something, and you started a shoe company with your own name. That's super cool. But again, dude, we're so sorry, man.
Hey, he
I
made sure that every
apologize.
MySpace user had at least one friend, all right? Every
That's right,
MySpace
man.
user had at least one friend.
Tom from MySpace, we owe the country owes you an apology.
That
Okay?
is true.
Facebook has aggregated volumes and volumes, quinterabyte, like just volumes of like server farms of data on this entire country.
Yes.
And the guy from MySpace was super chill, let you write your own HTML code on your page.
You see how I didn't make fun of you stuttering your words right there? See how I didn't make fun of you for stuttering your words, but you did to me earlier. You see, this is the epitome of idiots versus. Oh,
you deserve it.
You non-deserving. Me deserve.
That's correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure everybody knows the double standard.
Yes.
That is the idiots versus idiots show.
There's absolutely double standard. That's why we have a show.
All right. Let's get to your next story.
Should we jump into this next one?
Yeah.
This next story kind of makes me sad. I don't know if it makes you sad.
It makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So listen, LG, Lucky Gold Star, which is what LG stands for, by the way.
I did not know that. Is that really what it?
Yep.
Lucky Gold Star?
That is true. Yeah, because when the first LG phones dropped in this year country, they dropped on Verizon, and I was one of their first customers. And I used a specific program at Verizon where I would call up customer service, complain about the service. They would give me the phone for $100, whatever the price was of the phone, and then give me a credit to go along with it. So I got it for free.
Nice.
Yeah. And I remember the guy going, well, it's a Lucky Gold Star something or other, and I couldn't get on the computer to look it up because I was using the phone. It was dial-up. So... and we only had the one line.
That is awesome.
LG may be exiting the smartphone space. And let me tell you why it's sad to me. I've been a long-time user of LG's goods and services.
Yeah.
I have had I switched from the year the exploding Note came out. I'd switched to a Nexus device, and I went from Nexus to LG's V10 series, and I've had every single V series phone they've ever come out with ever since then. And this is the LG Wing, as I just displayed here. It has a slide-out screen. I'm doing it backwards so you people don't see my notifications. But this big man edits these videos, and I know he doesn't know how to blur anything yet.
No.
So I just think I think what's interesting to talk about here is we are going from Ford, GM, and then Chrysler to it's just going to be Samsung and Apple at this point. Really,
well,
that's all it's going to be.
Samsung, Google, and Apple, right? Samsung, Google, and but here, look.
Yeah, but Google, no one buys the Google. Google does not have. Google's phones are not a commodity the same way Samsung Android phones are.
No, and I agree with you there, but they're always going to be in the market. Here's what I like. I read this headline a couple of days ago, and I'm glad that you added this to the list today because the headline to me says it all. It says LG leaving the phone market isn't good for anyone except LG. And it's the truth. If you really dig down into this, LG has always made a good phone. Android gave them a horrible product to go on their phone, which has been one of the issues, like you alluded to, right? The using of the LG phone. The LG phone, like a car manufacturer, you've got the mechanics of the car, right? The engine, the transmission, the stuff.
Right.
And then you have how it looks. Two completely different things, right? The LG always made a good phone. It was like having a great engine in a nice car that had a bad operating system, right?
Yeah.
Because Android wasn't giving it the full Android because it wasn't an Android phone.
Yeah,
right?
It was an Android phone.
Well, but I mean, it wasn't a... My point is the software that ran on LG phones, especially in the beginning, wasn't the software that were available on other phones.
Yeah, that's true.
It had an inferior product on a Corvette engine, right? And that I think that hurt it in the long run.
Your analogy is a
Well,
garbage
maybe
analogy.
it's just a bad
It's a
analogy.
dumpster fire.
Okay, it's a dumpster
Your
fire.
analogy
I don't
is a dumpster fire.
The point is they got a bad rep from the go. Is that what they say?
Right.
There you go. Okay.
Well, okay.
They didn't
I don't
have
know
an
what
equal
you're
footing.
talking about. What's that?
They didn't have equal footing, is my point.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, that may or may not be true. I don't know what you're talking about.
Here's the real point I was trying to get to, though.
Okay,
the real point
finally,
is
get to your
they've
point
never
this
made
year.
a ton of money making phones. It's highly competitive. They're never going to, as you said, compete in today's market. And there was a quote that I like here because I use I like the wording that they use. It says the three companies that own all the mind share, right? Mind share is the key word here, that make all the profits are Apple, Google, and Samsung. And mind share is the key here, right? LG probably has just as many phones as Samsung has out, but they're not making the money because you don't go into a store going, hey, I want the newest LG.
Right. And here's what I will say, right? The reason I've been an LG phone user as long as I have is because they always cram it with the best top of the line chip, okay? Mm-hmm. And they did not force me to use Bixby because that is when I transitioned from being a Samsung guy to being a LG person, is because of Bixby. And I don't want, let me repeat, I don't want any of these assistants on my phone, right?
Right.
I don't even have I don't even have on my keyboard, on my keyboard on the phone, I don't even have like autocorrect because I don't want this thing learning how I type. So
you are so like you are a closet, like, what is that called? Like
a Luddite.
Whatever that. Okay, then fine.
I'm not a closet Luddite. I love technology.
My point is that you love what technology brings you, but you battle against it constantly, right? Like, I can't imagine why this tool exists to autocorrect. Why wouldn't you use it? The tool exists.
I'm paranoid about it. I'm paranoid,
and that's where it is. Your paranoia.
I'm not closeted.
That is your paranoia.
I'm openly paranoid.
You're openly paranoid, but I don't get it.
And soon on riselentless.com, you will be able to buy a mug because only the paranoid survive. Be available very soon.
No, I'm not paranoid, coming. And I'll survive because paranoid and planning are two different things.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. But zombie apocalypse happens tomorrow. I'll be here 5 days from now. Your butt won't. Look, the fact is, and the reason the headline exists, it's great for it's bad for everyone except for LG. LG makes way more money off of smart washing machines. They make way more money off of these smart refriges, right?
And TVs,
televisions, and stuff like they make so much money in other places.
Yeah, your favorite electric car company, Tesla. They use LG screens in their Model 3. LG, as a screen manufacturer, makes plenty of money. LG supplies screens to Sony sometimes, right?
LG was making solar panels. I don't know if they still do, but they were making solar panels at one time. The point is they are making money hands over fist with all these other lines, and they thought that cell phones was going to be yet another one of those lines, and it just hasn't panned out. And sometimes you just got to cut the fat.
So, right. What I find interesting, though, is there are competing articles out there where the head of LG's mobility division is saying we're not getting out of the business. Right. We are going to show a profit in 2021. We are here to stay, and we'll see. But what I think is more interesting about this story is this smartphone, okay, 15 years ago, I was one of the first smartphone people of my group of friends. They're like, oh my goodness, dude, I have a Razr. Why do you have such a big phone? Now all of these ding dongs are attached to these things like they are the lifesavers.
Yep.
And
I was one of those on the opposite side of you. I was one of those idiots. I resisted the smartphone as long as possible. Like I went through the quirky keyboard stage, all of it.
So listen, let's recall who called who a Luddite here. I'm an early adopter of this technology. I love it. However, it's got to a point where the evolution every year, because, CES and all this other stuff, there's no more evolution. It's just revolution. It's just minor, just little tweaks. And so we're getting to a point where the supply, not the supply chain, but the buy cycle of like if my parents didn't have a deal where I got them a new phone every year because they were on a lease deal, they could go 2 years or 3 years without getting a new phone and not
I still
notice.
do. But again,
I
they
know.
pushed this cycle on us. In the beginning, it was only every 2 or 3 years, and
Right.
then it came down, and now all of a sudden, it's got to not even a full year. You don't even get a full year before the next Samsung comes out, the next iPhone comes out. I mean, they push it just as quickly the next version, and like you said, there doesn't seem to be a lot of hell. You can even say in some cases, especially with again iOS, iPhone, and I know you and I aren't big fans, that in
Right.
some fashions they regress in the next version, like
A
when they
little
took
bit.
away the
Yeah.
3.5 head jack, right? And stuff
Yeah.
like that. They get these dumb decisions and then they fix it on the next model, and maybe
Right.
that's why they do come out so often.
So like this device right here, like I said, is the LG Wing, has 3 cameras. I remember, I think it was the V10 or the V20 from LG, had 2 cameras. And that was already a revolution, right? That was
Yeah.
like, holy crap, 2 cameras. Now we're at 3 cameras. Some of these Nokias, we're going to do a story about them next week. They have 4 cameras, 10 cameras. What are we doing here? Like,
I
we,
well, I don't always understand why they add things. At the end of the day, when you're doing
perceived
certain
value,
things,
big man.
perceived
Perceived
value,
value.
and I do understand that that's the point. Is I can say that it now has this, whether you use it or not ever, or you know what I mean, is irrelevant, but it has it, right? But again, I think for LG, and you're right, they keep going back and forth. There's nobody at LG that said they are definitely shutting down the phone market.
Right.
But there are definitely, when these kind of stories come out, somebody's saying it. Like, nobody outside of LG gives a crap enough to
Nobody's
say
guessing.
LG should
Yeah.
get out of the business. Somebody is saying something to somebody that says LG should get out of the business or is going to eventually. And the
let me
president's job is
also,
to just say, hey, we're in it for the long haul.
right. And you know what I find interesting is, the smartphone market went from Japan, Sony and those kinds of companies. And Sony was, by the way, for people who don't know, Sony was cited as the company that Apple ripped off for its most infamous iPhone 4, came from a Sony design, literally. And
It's
it
not
came out in a
surprising to
court
me. I
case.
didn't know that, but not surprising.
Right. So it shifted from Japan to South Korea, and now from South Korea to China, and now China and India, because some of the Chinese companies, India is rejecting them, and India and China is about to outpace India for population. At least it was pre Dos Equis. And China is now, or India rather, is going to be the market where the Chinese are like, holy crap, if we're not in India, we're doomed. But the Indian government is saying, we don't want your garbage. We want Indian produced
Right.
manufactured goods. So the Chinese companies and Taiwanese companies are now building factories in India to build phones, just like Apple is. But I just think it's interesting that in such a short time span, like 15 minutes in the grand scheme of human history, South Korea had this massive conglomeration and control over the smartphone market. And the last player that was giving Samsung any sort of competition is teetering on the brink of not existing in the business.
Right.
And that is crazy to me that I lived through Motorola stopping. They stopped mattering.
I was a big Motorola fan back in the day. I was a big, you know what I mean, Motorola fan. But again, but I think that is the now and the future. I think you're going to see things come and go, and we talk about this almost every episode. Being nimble, being able to listen to who's buying your product, who's listening to your product, who's using your product, and changing in category. And I think that's where you get look, LG's been around a long time, right?
Yeah, they're
That's
not
why
going anywhere.
That's why they make so many things and whatever. So they've been around a long time, but a company that's been around that long isn't always necessarily great at listening to their audience. I mean, you look at a company like LG, they've been around long enough that there was a time that here, you can only buy 3 different washers and dryers, right? There's only 3 companies that make them. You're going to buy ours or you're not, and we may be the only ones selling in your area. So you want our washer and dryer, you buy it, right? So there was a time and a place where that's not the way products worked. You didn't have 50,000 choices, and you
Right.
didn't have all these available. But you, in today's world, in the future, you've got to be nimble. You've got to change. And guess what? Having the best product doesn't always mean that it's the best received, right?
No,
That
just because you have, and the reason I love LG is because they experimented with form factors. I just got that phone that I showed you guys a week ago. Before that, I had a phone that had a dual screen case. It was impossible to carry and clunky, and the UI was useless. So I only carried it with the one screen ever. But it was cool. The concept that I had two screens and it wasn't a dumb foldable with a huge vein going down the middle, and I was going to destroy it by poking it with my fat fingers. I actually have really beautiful, slender fingers. That could be a hand model.
I do not. But go
I
ahead.
know. But I just thought it was an interesting story because as we're seeing the Chinese market grow, and the middle of the pack is starting to really have really good hardware. And Android is so robust as an operating system that you really don't have to tweak it like when LG and Samsung first started making Android phones. They really had to tweak the operating system to make
Right.
it function, right? And they don't have to do that anymore. You can just plop stock Android onto something and it's great. So I just feel
Yeah.
like, and especially with the last administration having a problem with one of the larger Chinese manufacturers, the South Korean option was really good because people were concerned about spying and so on and so forth. And I
Well,
just thought it was an interesting story.
losing competition, in my opinion, now again, I'm a capitalist. Losing competition is rarely good for an overall industry. Okay, LG leaving the phone market will not make everybody else better. It will make everybody else
No, it
worse.
won't.
Right?
Yeah,
If
and
your
listen,
phone market comes down to Samsung, iPhone, and let's just again keep Google in there because Google is Google and can do anything they want, right?
right?
If those are ultimately you can only get three different products,
Yeah,
it and they're only competing with each other, they really aren't even competing with each other anymore, right?
and let's leave out this. Let's not even mention the dark horse candidate in this regard, Microsoft. They were supposed to come out with a big. I think they might have come out. I don't even know. They were supposed to have a Surface phone. The Surface Duo was supposed to come out. I think it has launched, but because I just that's what I would have purchased actually. But I do think that if they want to kind of get into the Android business, because they have become a significant player in hardware,
Right.
their Surface phones and Surface laptops and Surface tablets are quality material. They're
Yes,
quality.
they
They're
are.
really good.
Yes, they are.
And if they want to get into the Android business as and skin Android with Microsoft's kind of vibe, I actually think they could be super successful. And I do think that they could not knock, but they could replace
LG, right?
LG
Yeah.
as that player. And Microsoft is not new to doing this. I mean, Microsoft initially approached Nintendo, said, "Hey, we're really good at doing hardware. We suck at everything else. Can we build you the next Nintendo system?" And Nintendo laughed in their face.
Oh
So
wow, I
Microsoft
didn't know
just
that.
came out. Yeah. Microsoft just came out with Xbox on its own after
Yeah.
having approached Nintendo and said, "Let us build it for you." And
Wow,
you
I didn't know
brand it
that.
as Nintendo. And they said, "We don't need you." And now Nintendo doesn't matter. Well,
Well,
Nintendo Switch, but
but that goes to my point is you're talking about a company like Microsoft, and when you get to the big players like this and you say, okay, you know what I mean, Google, Apple, Android, that kind of Samsung, it would take somebody like Microsoft to get into the industry. Now, we're not talking about Joe Bob over here starts a phone manufacturing company and can
right.
get it off the ground, right? That's the thing about when you get this big, it makes it harder for smaller people to move in that may be innovating, that may have come up with the next big
But
thing.
what's
That you know what I
interesting
mean?
though is like cell phones, smartphones, and this is what I initially wanted to say and completely forgot. They're a commodity now,
Right.
right? We're at a point where if you go buy a $200 smartphone, you can walk into Best Buy, buy a $200 or $300 smartphone, and it's 70% as good as the $1,000 smartphone. And
Mm-hmm.
it's as good as a $1,000 smartphone was 2 years ago. So
Well,
somebody
and the
walking.
technology may only be that 18 months to 2 years old.
Yes. So that's what is kind of where we're at, because I bought this phone with a slightly slower processor than my other phone. It's just as fast. So
Right, your user experience, right, is
yeah,
just as fast. They make this with TVs and stuff like that, right? Your eye can only see so much, and processing.
yeah.
I used
I
to
don't
make this
want
argument on
8K,
computer.
dude. I
Yeah.
don't want freaking 8K. 1080p as high as I'm going. That's
Right.
it.
Look, again, usage, right? That kind
Yeah.
of stuff. But again, I just want to see a marketplace where things get
The
better.
aliens are using 8K.
And I'm going to say this just at the end of this, just to make sure that I get this out there, because I believe this is. I think this argument of what goes into this phone also has a very short shelf life in the near future. Cloud computing is where all this stuff goes. In the very near future, you're going to be paying cloud computing to do this, and what you're buying, this becomes really inexpensive because it's just what you're carrying in your pocket. Everything that happens on this is controlled somewhere else.
Is that like a
Because
3-year-old S9?
this is a Samsung S9 Plus. All right. Again, I told you I keep my phones forever.
I
My
know you
point though
do.
is that's the future, right? That's the outline that's going in. What you carry in your pocket will have next to nothing in it. It'll be super cheap and super cheap to replace. And what you'll be paying for is what's happening somewhere else.
Nah,
That's the future.
I disagree. I disagree. But let's roll on to this next story.
Okay, and what is this next story?
This next story is Gary V, one of our favorites.
Is dumb. This next story is dumb.
Well, the way you said that makes it sound like you think Gary V is dumb. I don't think he's dumb. I think he's very smart.
No. The story. Okay, let me look. I have to bag on Danny all the time about things, and one of the things that I get onto him for is, look, Danny. I'm willing to admit this. Curates, right? Curates.
Yeah.
He
Curates is the correct word.
finds the stories that we talk about 99% of the time, and I appreciate him for that. Blah blah blah. Yada yada. Whatever. The point is, though, when Danny sends me the stories we're going to talk about, normally they have links associated with them that says, hey, basically, here's where I'm getting this information. Here's why I think this story is important. The problem is sometimes the stories where Danny curates the content is so far outside the box of what the story is, it's asinine. This is one of those stories. So what is the subject matter, Danny?
Okay, so the general thing I wanted to talk about was,
yes,
as cannabis. I think that's the appropriate usage here. I don't think we're allowed to say the other word.
Okay, he's trying to fancy this up for you folks. No. Let me read this to you. Here's the subject line that Danny sent me. As more influencers get into the herbal remedy space, will it finally hit pay dirt? Now, that's what he sent me as the title for what we're going to discuss. Now,
let me tell you why. No, let me tell you why it's pay dirt, because Dan Bilzerian, who is a social influencer, an Instagram, like the original male Instagram model, that's unfair, but he got into the business with his business with Ignite, and he lost $100 million the first year, right? So some of the larger players that are getting into it are not turning a profit. They're losing money.
No, the story, yes, you're talking about the subject matter of the story. That's not what I'm getting. That's not what I'm making fun of you for. What I'm making fun of you for is the link to the story that gave Danny this idea.
Yeah, okay.
Is not about it's loosely based on the subject matter, and he tried to go into it very, very briefly. It's a link to a story where Juicy J and Gary V
36 Mafia
teamed up.
Yes.
For on a product asterisk. Right?
Yeah, on an herbal remedies brand called Asterisk.
Okay.
And I think that it's the reason it's important, the reason it's interesting isn't because of Juicy J. It's because of Gary V. Okay? This is still a product that is
all the ways, herbal remedies have been around forever. Okay. Snake oil salesman back in the day. Like herbal remedies.
This is not what I meant by herbal remedies, though. I didn't mean herbal remedies.
I understand that, but
that was a colloquialism. That was a
I get it.
colloquialism.
You're meaning
I don't
herbal,
know
as
that
in
you
this
do.
case marijuana, right? Which again has been around forever as an herbal remedy.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Before it was started regulated in 1940s and anyway, I could go into the whole history of that. The point is herbal remedies have been around forever. People and people of stature making crap tons of money from them has been around forever. In this one, I do get, it's just so far outside of the box. I do, however, gave me my favorite quote of the day, and it says, "The days of the dull dime bag are over."
Yes. I don't know. I've never consumed cannabis ever in my life. That's
You,
a true fact.
I have not either.
Okay.
I have not either. I don't know what you're talking about.
All right. Well, in case this accidentally pops up in one of your kids' feeds, I guess we'll go with that. But no, I just think it's interesting that we're seeing this, which is a technically federally illegal business,
Yes.
but so widely legal in so many states. Some like 30 states or something have already hit legalization.
Sure.
There is bound to be a Philip Morris type company that emerges as the dominant player. And why wouldn't it be? Like Mike Tyson has a huge, massive marijuana farm, a cannabis farm.
Yeah. And CBD oil, and look, how many companies are out there right now? Thousands of websites out there. They're trying to get off the ground of selling their version, their formula of CBD oil and
Yeah, like the
products and
Cheech, I think
lotions and
Cheech or Chong, one of those guys, has a CBD gummy a CBD company. I bought their CBD gummies. They're not very. It didn't work for me.
well, and that's my point. That look, this is my issue with the entire industry of
Here we
remedies,
go.
herbal remedies and stuff
Big
like
man
that.
has another issue with something. What's new?
I have an issue with anything that says they do something that they don't. That's what I have an issue with. Okay, I'm sorry. I have what they call integrity, right? That I have an issue with any product, problem, anything that's promoted that doesn't accomplish the goal that it sets forth. Now, you can't do it everywhere. Here's what I used to work in pharmacies back in the day. It was my first real big job, was working in pharmacies. And my whole thing was, people would come up to the counter and they say, "Hey, does fill in the blank product, right? Over the counter, herbal remedy, blah, blah, blah. Does fill in the blank fat reducing product work?" And my answer to them always was, if it worked 100% of the time for 100% of the people, it would be back here behind the counter making $1,000 a bottle and not making out there making 30. And it's the truth.
Okay.
Right?
So the point I was trying to talk about was not what Big Man is talking about. Is not his gripe. Okay, and I will say,
I'm telling you my opinion, but
Right.
go ahead.
I'm just saying, Jessica Alba owns a company called Honest or something like that. They sell cleaning products.
Right.
I just think we have reached a point now where there's wide legalization in states, and in a country, for instance, like Canada, where it's legal across the whole
Right.
country, where we are now going to see influencers openly having their own brand in the space. And I just thought that was interesting. And when you
I don't
see
know that it's look. Have you never heard of Snoop Dogg? This guy's been openly for this industry for 30 years. Okay?
Yeah, I know. But listen, I'm just saying that I think this was interesting because it's Gary Vee. When you see a guy who has an institutional venture capital fund, RSE Vayner, when you see a guy like that, you put his name behind something, it creates a sense of legitimacy. And I think we're approaching a point where
I disagree. I had the utmost respect for Gary Vee. You know this. You and I both big
I don't
Gary
know
Vee
that I
fans.
know this.
Okay, you and I both big Gary Vee fans, right?
Who isn't?
But that's my point. Is again, just because Gary Vee went into business with this guy does not automatically give him credibility. Okay,
No, you say this guy, Juicy J, is a multi-platinum award-winning rapper.
Okay, it doesn't
Memphis,
matter.
Tennessee, baby. Come on.
Okay, that doesn't make him a herbal remedies specialist. Okay, he's a rapper. All
Yeah,
right.
no, actually, it kind of does.
Well, maybe
Actually, you're wrong.
in this
Yeah,
particular situation,
you're wrong.
okay.
That actually
all right,
makes
all
him an
right.
expert.
My
No,
my
I'm
point
just
though is he's not you know what I mean,
okay.
nature made or
Let
whatever.
me. Oh my goodness, I'm not talking about natural remedies
I
across the
understand what you're
board.
talking
I don't
about.
think you do.
I 100% know what
Okay.
you're talking about. Okay.
Now let me ask you. Let me pose this question to you. Okay. When you see institutional investors get involved in a business that is federally illegal, you don't think it lends credibility to the entire industry? You don't
No.
think Gary V's going in his office in the stockyards in New York going, well, federal legalization is probably around the corner. Might as well jump in early,
I would
right?
agree to that. I would agree
Okay.
that
There
federal
are
legislation is right around the corner. There's
we actually
legislation
might have
introduced,
yeah.
right? That and
And
absolutely. And should you hedge a bet into that in a what you
there
think is
are
a budding, no pun intended, budding market, right? But I agree with that. However, this is one of the dumbest ways I could ever think to go about it.
why?
Because it all right, I look again. Been in business a long time.
Okay.
I know a lot of business people.
Okay, wait.
I know
Let's
people
think.
that are running some of these dispensaries and farming and stuff like that in states where it is legal. Okay.
Right.
And I know people in several different states and different states doing things widely differently because there
Yes.
are very state specific.
Yeah.
So there are a billion ways to get a piece of this industry that aren't this dumb.
Okay. Let's clear the slate. Let's say how do you do it? If you're big man,
Dude,
how do
they're
you get into
already
the
doing
business?
it.
Okay.
You either grow or you dispense. It's not brain science. Here's my deal. You read this article you sent me, and what is the whole Gary V thing getting it? And I actually understand Gary V's concept here is I'm taking a big name guy that a whole bunch of people know, right? The rapper. I don't know of him, but you do. So I'm
Yeah,
taking
but
your
here's the
word
thing.
that he's a big
What I'm
name
saying
guy.
is he took two groups of people, Gary V fans and Juicy J fans. Gary V has a much larger audience,
Sure.
and he put them together and he created a brand. I just think
He created a brand that does what?
sells herbal
T-shirts.
remedy.
And, well, okay. Again, you have an existing dispensaries, farmers, all these different ways that Gary V could have stepped into this industry. He could have literally made Gary V dispensaries and done this in a more straightforward way than partnering with some random rapper to come up with a company called Asterisk with an asterisk at the end of the name Asterisk, which to me I don't even understand. But okay, here's the word asterisk. So really your brand name is Asterisk because that's what it says. It's got an asterisk at the end of the asterisk name. So it's asterisk. And your tagline is a multimedia lifestyle brand developing high quality merch and music, all packaged with a beautiful design. That's the tagline of the business. Doesn't even in the tagline of the business mention the herbal remedy you're referring to.
Maybe I misunderstood something because I thought they were dropping. Whatever. The
I
point
think
is,
ultimately they want to, but they're not currently. This is my point where it just didn't make sense in the two connecting. But again, Gary V, much respect. And if he wants to dip his toe into the herbal remedy market, the CBD market, the marijuana market, I am all for it. I agree with you in that there's already legislation in the national government under the current administration trying to get this out of that Control 1 category.
and by the way, did
All
you know
for
that did you know that Gary V owns Green Street Agency, which is a creative agency dedicated to cannabis co-owned by Gary Vaynerchuck.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
There's an entire agency out there that he owns a part of.
A couple of years ago, when I took my family to Colorado on vacation. We rented a cabin up in the mountains, and as we're driving into Colorado, and I hadn't been to Colorado in a while, and as we're driving through these small towns, I kept seeing these buildings with the old fashioned Red Cross symbol,
Yes.
that everybody recognizes, Red Cross or whatever. I kept seeing these buildings.
So it's a red box with a white cross in it. It usually means health or help.
Red Cross hospitals.
Hospital.
Right, you see them, and my point is, it's easy to recognize. Right, you see it on the side of a building. Oh, that must be a hospital, a medical center, something. Right. We kept driving through these small towns, and I would see these decent-sized buildings with the exact same logo and design, but green instead of red. And I'm like, what the hell is this?
Yeah,
right. And I kept seeing them over and over, and it wasn't until we got all the way to our cabin, and I sat down, and I just finally got to me where I had to Google it, and apparently that symbol means that they sell marijuana there, right? That because it's legal in Colorado. And I'm like, but they took the exact, like it's a replica of medical, and just put it green instead of red. And again, I think it's a little brilliant on, you know what I mean? The back, I mean, it's an easy recognizable, symbol, and it being green and all that. It's definitely an industry that, look, I'm all for it. I'd be a little, if I wasn't saying that I would love for the state of Texas to do that, because I've got the inside track on that business as far as getting the, suppliers that I know from other states and stuff like that to hook up with dispensaries here in Austin. I'd be all for it. But
let me tell you something.
Do I think it's going to happen in Texas before the national government does it? No.
No. When Nevada hit legalization, I was in Austin, and my first thought was, I need to move to Las Vegas and become the cannabis king of Nevada. And I didn't do it, and to this day I regret it.
Well, look, and this is an industry that this is one of those that, look, there's a lot of people trying to get on, even from a distribution side. You're talking about Glacier, which is if you don't know what Glacier is, they're the distributor for most alcohol, hard liquor, right? Jack Daniels pays Glacier. Every hard liquor pays Glacier to distribute their product all over America, right? They actually, because a couple of years ago, and a lot of people don't know this, Glacier went into into Canada and offered to the government of Canada to be their government-ran distribution for cannabis, for marijuana. And the reason they did that, they don't give a crap about Canada. What do they want? They want to work out all the kinks and details so that if it ever does, or they think it will, be legal in the United States, that they just go, hey, we've already got this crap figured out.
Yep.
Here it is. We'll take from those farmers in Colorado, we'll just go ahead and bring it down to Texas, or we'll bring it down.
Right, we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. That's all their thing is. You know what I mean? I think, again, going back to, I think to the story you have here, the influence in herbal remedies, whether it be marijuana or any other kind of remedy, there are all kinds of stars that are making money off of makeup, that are making money off aren't several of the Kardashians in certain makeup and certain, you know what I mean, whatever.
No, just the one.
Perfumes, right?
Yeah.
It's an industry that will never end,
right?
Because there's no regulation on it. Right? Of what effectiveness, right? Efficacy is what they call it. There's no boundaries what you can say.
The Kardashians, the daughters were at some point in time pumping diet pills. And they got paid.
Didn't they get in trouble though?
I'm sure they did. But I'm sure they got paid $200 million, and then they had to pay a $1.8 million fine. That's probably what it ended up being.
Speaking of that, and I know because we talked about hedge funds and stuff like that. Did you see that thing? Just because it came up, and I'm going to talk about it. The hedge fund guy that did a news article today, that did an interview, and said because they're getting beat up on all this stock stuff, the GameStop or whatever, says that it threw a pitch fit like a 2-year-old, diaper wearing 2-year-old or whatever, and said that this shouldn't happen to them. That he paid he's a 3.3 billionaire, right? $3.3 billion.
That's not a lot of billions.
But his fine for insider trading last year was $5 million. So my point is like you just said with the Kardashians and any remedy they were pushing or whatever, if they made $200 million and they got fined because they were doing something wrong or whatever, $10 million, the math works out, baby. The math works out. And that's why these remedies will go forward. I'm not surprised Gary Vee is doing any of this. My point is I think it's kind of lame that he did it in this way, partnering with this guy. And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So let's just wrap up this story where Big Man complains about everything. Let's close
I
up this
don't complain
episode.
about every. You've literally said I don't complain about everything. That I'm very optimistic, but because I complain about one of your stories, come on.
Yeah, okay. And this is this is Danny of Idiots versus Idiots, and I'm just gonna sign off with a pro tip for all of you. If you read the subtitles of an entire season of any show on Netflix, counts as reading a book.
You are such an idiot.
Right back at you, Slick.
I'm gonna quit this show. It's awful. It's
Me
awful.
too.